Hello everyone, my name is Basim. I'm in front of you today to present our group presentation on the course named Legal Risks in Business in Trent University. The members of the team who created this presentation is Basim, Habibur Rahman, Noor, Sneha, Nafis and Aishwarya Rajendran. First of all, let me express my gratitude to our beloved professor, Mr. Lucas Tang, for giving us such a good opportunity to do this presentation. So without further ado, let's start the presentation. The topic that we have chosen for this assignment is privacy compliance and data breach risk. That's the legal risk that we have chosen that is faced by the businesses nowadays. So what is data breach? So data breach is a violation of security in which confidential and important data of the customer is either used or stolen by unofficial party or unrecognized party. So privacy compliance or privacy regulation is a really thin line between illegal and legal practices. The privacy compliance or regulations aids in protecting the data of consumers by ensuring the data is handled securely by the businesses. So businesses faces lot of legal risk nowadays that are continually developing and evolving day by day. The risk of data breach is an area which possesses the overlap of both contract risk and legislative compliance risks. So a business which is having threat in data breach, it also possesses a threat to the contract of the company and the legislative compliances of the company. The huge chunk of data or the huge inventory of data that is possessed by the businesses nowadays is a really tempting target for hackers or the cyber criminals, as we see. The non-compliance of data breach laws will lead to huge implications and huge fines for businesses according to the laws of different countries nowadays. So privacy security or privacy compliance is an absolute necessary nowadays. Right now in the business world, due to the growing surge in the number of data breaches taking place, privacy compliance or privacy security is very imperative. So there are many laws regarding the privacy regulations in different countries. For example, in a European Union, laws like GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, and the laws in US like the California Consumer Privacy Act known as CCPA Acts are becoming very stringent regarding data privacy. Privacy compliance is the process of properly implementing and practicing data privacy laws like these. So the tools used by these businesses nowadays are cyber security. So cyber security is one of the most important tools to safeguard against these attacks. For taking quick actions against a breach or to respond against a breach quickly, an organization should have a strong privacy governance, and it is very crucial making sure the organization handling protocols of the data is done very diligently because it may expose the businesses into greater risk. So it is very important to handle all the protocols very diligently. Now I'm going to show the statistics of data breaches taken place in US between the year of 2005 and 2020. From the statistics, it is pretty evident that during the time period of 2005 to 2012, the data breach levels in US is comparatively low. Whereas after 2012, it clearly indicates that there is a humongous surge in the data breaches taken place in US. And 2017 denotes the highest peak in this. So now it's pretty evident that with the advancements of technology and with the evolution of technology, data breach is the biggest legal risk that businesses face today. Now I'm going to show you a small video regarding data breach. It explains what is data breach.
Your personal information is spread across many websites throughout the internet. From online banking, credit reports, e-commerce, tax returns, and healthcare accounts, your personal information may be at risk of loss or theft. Most businesses and organizations that you transact with have elaborate security programs to protect your personal information. But this doesn't stop cybercriminals from trying to steal your data. Due to vulnerabilities in software, these cybercriminals can infiltrate and steal not only your data, but potentially thousands of other people's information too. Data breaches and data theft affect millions of people around the world and is on the rise. Many companies have suffered a massive data breach, leading to layoffs, lawsuits, and fraud. Once these cybercriminals have your personal information, they can completely drain your bank account of its funds. A data breach can also result in identity theft, allowing someone else to use credit cards with your name, potentially damaging your credit history. In some cases, data breaches can result in blackmail if the victim was a member of a questionable site or has information they don't want made public. Individual users may be targeted with specifically designed malware that can delete or steal information off of a personal computer. While data breaches can severely impact individuals, businesses and government organizations are usually at a larger risk. Even employees can steal and sell personal information to third parties who use it for criminal purposes.
That was all about the video, and now I welcome Mr. Abibur Rahman to do the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Today I'm going to discuss about legal implications of data breach. The unauthorized and illegal acquisition of personal information that compromises its integrity, security, or confidentiality. Canadians need a system where they know how their data is used and where they have control, how it is handled, as they depend more and more on technology. The proposed Digital Charter Implementation Act 2020, which includes the Consumer Privacy Protection Act, would significantly increase protections to Canadians' personal information by giving Canadians more control and greater transparency when companies handle their personal information. Canada needs a system built on trust with clear regulations and strict enforcement if it is to succeed, and so that our businesses may innovate in the new world. In 2022, the Canadian government used new legislations that would revise the privacy foundations for the country. Navdeep Bains, the Minister of Information, Science and Economic Development, introduced Bill C-11. Now I'm going to talk about the legal implications and fines or penalties. There was so many proposals. So one proposal was an organization may be fined up to $25 million or 5% of its global income for violating the law, with a maximum administrative penalty of 10 million or 3% of its total global revenue. Navdeep Bains, the Minister of Information, Science and Economic Development, presented Bill C-11, which says that business may be fined up to 5% of their annual turnover or $25 million, whichever is greater, beginning in 2022. According to additional reports, the new proposed privacy law would allow for fines of up to 5% of global turnover for businesses that fail to secure Canadians' personal information. Potential consequences of a breach under Personal Health Information Protection Act. If found guilty of violation of Personal Health Information Protection Act, may be subject to fine up to $200,000, up to 1 year in jail, or both. A company or institution could be subject to 10 million fine. Reasons of fines. Canada had 2 significant data breaches in past year. Sensitive information about 50 million clients of the laboratory testing company Life Labs was made public, and all 4.2 million members were impacted by an employee's improper use of company data. The European Union introduced the General Data Protection Regulations in 2018 to provide citizens new rights regarding how their data can be kept private, and Canada is following in their footsteps. Thanks.
Thank you, Habib, for explaining legal implications of data breach. Now it's me, Noora Jannat. I'm gonna share with you some common types of personal data breaches. The first one is staff members may inappropriately accessing personal data of the customer. The second one is staff taking data with them when they leave an organization. Security breaches or hacks of computer systems may also include in that. The third one is personal data being sent to the wrong person by mistakenly. Some common types of risk are identified: theft, discrimination, and reputational damage to the people whose data has been breached. According to a report by Cisco Systems, almost 6% of their employees admitted to transferring files between their work and personal computers while working remotely. From a data security perspective, this creates a huge opportunity for information compromise, which could put company data large sums of money and even jobs at risk. Of personal data breach. A risk assessment is the process of determining the likelihood of an event occurring and the severity of potential harm to individuals. Whether or not it's a high-risk situation depends on what the personal data is and what could potentially happen with that data. If you decide it's unlikely there will be a negative impact on those concerned, you might categorize it as low risk. However, if the potential consequences are very significant, you might consider the overall risk assessment to the high, even if it's unlikely to happen. Consequences of data breach. Protecting proprietary information including client communications, financial transactions, knowledge, archives, infrastructure, and database must be a top priority for companies and organizations. If they fail and a data breach occurs, companies may lose customers and their clients. Trust, and without trust they have no business. Understanding risk requires a clear-eyed view of the consequences of a data breach. This short view offers a straight talk on the short-term and long-term consequences of a data breach for a small business. So the first one is short-term consequences. Under the short-term consequences, the first one is direct fines and fees. The Payment Card Industry Security Standards Council may impose fines and penalties as a result of a data breach. The second one is forensic investigation. One of the consequences of a data breach is that the business that was attacked will be responsible for performing a forensic investigation in order to determine the cause of the data breach. In the short term, however, this investigation can be costly. The last one is future security costs. Businesses that are the victim of a data breach may incur costs related to mandatory credit monitoring for customers whose data was compromised. Those remediation efforts may also include the cost of card replacement, identify theft, repair, and additional compliance requirements from the payment card industry. And the last but not the least is the long-term consequence. A good reputation is often a company's most prized aspect, as a business must work constantly to build and maintain the integrity of its plans. However, one compromising episode like a data breach can tarnish even the best of reputation. However, business can and do recover from the consequences of data breach. Yet, the loss of trust and diminished reputation that data breaches cause can be measured directly on your bottom line. Understanding the consequences of data breach is an important first step on the road of safeguarding your business. Now, Nafiz will take floor to discuss regulatory compliance and underlying contracts. Thank you, everyone.
Hi everyone, this is Nafiz Imtiaz. Now I am going to talk about regulatory compliance of data security. First of all, we need to know what is regulatory compliance. Regulatory compliance is an organization's adherence to laws, regulations, guidelines, and specifications relevant to its business processes. Organizations must develop solid data security policies and practices to help prevent serious incidents, including data security breaches involving customers and employees. Having robust data privacy policies and practices also helps avoid potential lawsuits and regulatory investigations involving data security. It also provides significant reputational benefits if an organization can avoid data security incidents. An organization is responsible for personal information in its possession or custody, including information that has been transferred to a third party for processing. The organization shall use contractual or other means to provide a comparable level of protection while the information is being processed by a third party. Similar explicit or implicit requirements exist under substantially similar provincial legislation. There were some challenges that come with regulatory compliance. Those are being forced to participate in remediation programs, facing monetary fines and penalties, damaging brand reputation. Therefore, before transferring any sort of personal information to a contractor or service provider, organizations should ensure that appropriate steps have been taken to protect such information. This can include reviewing the privacy policies and past practices of contractors or service providers, as well as requesting information about prior privacy compliance and data breaches. It should also include appropriate contractual protections, either in the form of a full data protection agreement or privacy provisions in the service agreement itself. More and more big data solutions and technologies are supplied by third parties. Thus, an enterprise needs to have restrictions and protections in place to ensure that backdoor discovery of personal information doesn't occur. Such third parties provide products and services for analyzing, managing, and storing highly complex and sensitive data, such as consumer behavior or personal health information. Relying on third parties for analysis can create significant risk with respect to liability. For example, when the output data is based on inaccurate or incomplete information, where expected correlation did not happen, or when hackers are able to re-identify individuals from multiple data sources. Regarding contracts with third-party big data providers, there are some problems. Those are inadvertent data loss, such as stripping metadata and truncating communication threads, custody and control data, disagreements with relevant policies and procedures, international rules and regulations. An organization should have a systematic compliance effort. A good framework that guarantees data privacy for the clients and employees will have these components. First one is having an overall compliance strategy. Many organizations do not have a comprehensive, integrated, measurable, and centralized strategy for achieving data privacy compliance. And this is achieved by having a high-level set of principles and documentations defining measures the organization will take with respect to personal data as defined by applicable laws. All key stakeholders and areas in the organization must be represented. Second one is having compliance subject matter expert, which is called SMEs in short. No one can be an expert in the myriad of regulations needing compliance. Assigning and training SMEs to be expert for specific regulations such as HIPAA or GDPR is one option. This strategy ensures a single source of expertise to develop legally compliant policies and practices. Dedicated SMEs can be the drivers of all compliance documentation. Third one is inventorying and assessing personally identifiable information or sensitive personal information. Personal data must be identified and tagged when it is collected, and companies must provide a method to track it. This will help the company to locate and appropriately protect personal data in accordance with legal and recommended standards. Keeping proper compliance documentation, compliance plans and processes should be properly documented. A variety of content management systems are available such as Microsoft SharePoint, OneDrive for business and others to house and track all documents, reports and records. An employee dedicated to managing a document security and compliance is ideal. Then guaranteeing proof of compliance. It's not just enough to know that organization is data privacy compliant. Organization must be ready to present conformance for external or internal inquiries. Compliance should be clearly verifiable and readily accessible through reports and documentation. Organization should have a process for reporting non-compliance as well as a clearly defined escalation path. Continual adherence to confidentiality principles should be verified through appropriate monitoring, auditing, and use of controls.
Hello everyone, I'm Sneha and I'm going to talk about two examples of data breach that have occurred in the past in few organizations. The organizations that I'm going to talk about is JP Morgan and Yahoo. A data breach on a massive scale is a major concern for an organization and has an impact on its business and as well as its consumers. In 2014, 83 million accounts with JP Morgan Chase were compromised when a cyber attack captured personal information of customers. Names, email addresses, and phone numbers were stolen from 2/3 of American households. Hackers were able to access these company servers and were in the network for 2 months undetected before the breach was discovered. The bank said users of Chase.com or the Chase mobile app could see banking information and transactions of those with similar personal information. Exposed customer data includes names, account balances, account numbers, and transaction details. The glitch was supposedly active for 3 weeks between May 24 and June 14th. Customers were informed that they will not be held liable for any fraudulent activity on their Chase accounts that you promptly tell us about, and were encouraged to check their accounts regularly for suspicious activity, and this is why Chase Bank is providing free monitoring services for 1 year. So the next organization that was affected by data breach was Yahoo. Around July 2016, account names and passwords for about 200 million Yahoo accounts were presented for sale on the darknet market site, The Real Deal. The hackers had obtained data from over 500 million user accounts, including account names, email addresses, telephone numbers, date of birth, hashed passwords, and in some cases, encrypted or unencrypted security questions and answers. Such information, especially security questions and answers, could help hackers break into victims' other account online. Since the data has been up for sale, 3 entities have purchased the data. 2 of the known entities are spammers and the other appears to be interested in suspicious purposes. Another breach in the same year after Yahoo discovered 1 billion of their accounts were compromised. The hacker, Alexei Balin, was able to gain access to Yahoo's user database and account management tool through a spear phishing campaign that specifically targeted Yahoo employees. Yahoo's breach exposed different types of risk arising from the attack, not only to the users but company also to the entire IT world. Due to negligence, Yahoo has essentially placed millions of users at risk of personal information theft as a result of the hack. Yahoo's customers and users lost faith in the company as a result of this event. The massive data breach at Yahoo that compromised 3 billion accounts resulted in a huge monetary amount. They were charged with $35 million by the Securities and Exchange Company as a penalty for falsely presenting the facts and failing to notify the customers about the breach. Apart from charges, Yahoo had to pay $35 million as attorneys' fees and another $16 million towards their cyber incidents, from which $5 million was solely dedicated to the forensic investigation and remediation activities. They disclosed paying $11 million towards legal costs, their investigations from 5 state and federal agencies, and Class 44 action lawsuits.
Hello everyone, this is Aishwarya and I'll be presenting about some of the effective ways to prevent data breach. Since data breaches take many different forms and can happen in a multitude of ways, you need to be on your guard and employ a variety of different strategies to protect yourself. The first and most simplest strategy is educating your employees. This might be like a very simple strategy, but it can be a very powerful defense against data breaches. First, it's important to educate your employees on how to protect data from being compromised. You can do this by helping them understand how to create strong passwords, how often they should change their passwords, and by helping them spot, avoid, report phishing scams and other suspicious activity. It's also valuable to educate employees on common cybersecurity threats that could lead to a breach and how to avoid them. Second most important strategy is to encrypt data. If you send confidential data by mail, make sure that they are encrypted before they are being sent. If using a Wi-Fi network, ensure you have a dedicated network for your team that the public can't access. For the most sensitive data, you may require employees to not use Wi-Fi at all, as it can allow cybercriminals to intercept data. And the third most important strategy would be to improve general security. Improving your general security is an important step as well. This is a huge and multifaceted topic, so it's important to be comprehensive here. Using techniques like better architecture, firewalls, VPNs, traffic monitoring and restrictions, and even routine updates can make a big difference. And next most simplest strategy is to have a clear desk policy. Staff shouldn't store paperwork on their desk or in their workspace, including folders, cards, and post-it notes. Make a policy about this to help minimize the risk of sensitive information being left unattended. And the fifth very important strategy is to conduct regular audits on security posture. There isn't a top-to-bottom data security strategy you can employ that will protect you against all threats thereafter. That's because everything is constantly changing. You're hiring new people, your organization is growing, you're handling new and different types of data, you're using new systems. Old best practices are becoming obsolete. And most importantly, motivated hackers and cybercriminals are discovering new techniques and approaches to take advantage of vulnerable systems. And therefore, completing regular audits to identify potential new gaps in compliance or governance will help in validating your security posture. Next, we'll look at the next strategy is vulnerability and compliance management. Using a vulnerability and compliance management tool, or at the very least, complete a vulnerability assessment, will help you identify the gaps, weaknesses, and security misconfigurations within your physical and virtual environments. Next very important strategy is to destroy before disposal. Make sure before you dispose of anything that may have confidential information on it, make sure it's properly destroyed. For example, cross-cut, shred paper files. And next most important strategy is what we might usually ignore is insider threats. The human aspect or insider threat is often underestimated or even overlooked when companies develop a data security strategy. To combat this trend, companies should enact best practices that marry preventions and protection so that communication is secured and delivered to the appropriate person. So now, thinking about suppose your data is breached, what should the companies do beforehand to prevent it? They should take regular data backups and recovery. Sometimes data breaches can maliciously delete all of your data. It's important to have your data backed up so that it can easily be recovered in case of data loss, a server crash, or even a natural disaster. I hope these strategies play a very important role in maintaining companies' reputation, job integrity, and bottom line. They are developing practices and policies to ensure employees are aware of how best to secure sensitive information in an increasingly digital and perilous world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aishwarya, for wonderfully explaining the effective ways to prevent data breach. And now this is the reference slide, and these are the reference used by us. And now we have come to the end of our presentation. Thank you everyone for listening to this presentation. And if you have any doubts regarding the topic, you can comment below the video. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day.